everybody, and welcome to MelTheBombshell. Today's video is going to be a bit different from all of the others that I've done so far, as today I will be covering some keyboard content. In particular, I'll be going over my Havit keyboard, which I got on Amazon. Currently, I cannot find this keyboard on Amazon or on any other sites, but if I do find it, I will be sure to link that in the description below. So this is a 10 keyless keyboard, meaning that it's a bit smaller than full-size keyboards and has less keys. However, this keyboard does come with a number pad if that is important to you. This keyboard does have a soldered PCB, which means that I cannot easily pull out the switches. But I will still be performing 3 mods on this keyboard in the video. So stay tuned and watch the rest of the video to find out how to mod this keyboard and make it sound so much better. The first modification that I'll be doing to this Havit keyboard is the tape mod. Sadly, my initial footage of doing the tape mod was corrupted and had to be deleted, but I still want to show you all as much as I can. So for this modification, first you will need to detach your top and bottom pieces of the keyboard to expose the PCB. Once you have your PCB exposed, all you will need is some blue painter's tape. You can also use electrical tape or any other type of painter's tape, but you'll need some tape. It does not have to be as wide as the roll that I'm using here, but it does need to be like a less sticky tape. So here I have a wide roll of blue painter's tape, which I then cut into strips and fit onto the bottom of my PCB. For the modification that I did, I used 3 layers of painter's tape, which I then pressed down onto the PCB to prevent from having a lot of air bubbles. I also had to leave room to plug in the cord, the outside USB cord, into the PCB to make sure the keyboard could work, and I had to poke out these holes on the bottom of the PCB in order to screw in the top plate to the bottom portion of my keyboard. Once I had all of the tape applied to the PCB, all I had to do was take my bottom part of the keyboard and attach the top part. This just involved a couple of screws placed along the top plate of the keyboard and also aligning that bottom USB cord in its designated slot. Once this was done, my keyboard was ready to be used once again with a bit better of a sound. Sadly, I do not have the before and after of this sound test due to the corruption of my original video files. I want to go ahead and mention that all of the sound tests of this video will be at the end of the video. Now on to mod number 2. This is the foam mod. Foam mod consists of me taking this generic packing foam and stuffing it basically in between the PCB and the back plate of the keyboard. Step 1 is to remove all of the keycaps on the keyboard. Of course, I'm doing this in fast motion so that you don't have to sit through and watch me take off all of these keycaps. I'm also using a very cheap keycap puller that came with the keyboard, which I do not recommend. If you are someone that is planning on modifying many keyboards, I would recommend more of a wire tool to do this, but this is what I had handy, so it's what I used. As you also notice, this keyboard kind of gives a little bit of resistance and is a little bit more difficult to remove the larger keycaps that have stabilizers. Now on to step number 2. This next step involves unscrewing the top plate from the bottom plate and exposing the PCB. This basically just takes the keyboard, which is all in one big piece, and makes it into two flatter pieces. Now's the fun part. I get to struggle with separating the top and bottom plate, and nope, didn't get it, and come on, yep, there we go. You see here that I have already performed the tape mod on the bottom of the PCB. So now the moment has come. I finally get to put the foam pieces inside of the bottom plate of the keyboard. So as you see here, I struggled with trying to fit the foam into the bottom for quite some time before I realized it would be easier to just cut the pieces of foam into strips and then cut and fit the strips into all the empty spaces in the bottom of the keyboard. What doing a foam modification like this essentially does to a keyboard is it mutes the key presses and makes the keyboard sound better and a bit more thocky. Of course, if you like a keyboard, then you won't want to do this modification as it will remove the clickiness by absorbing that sound. I found this to be kind of fun and satisfying, as it was like a nice jigsaw puzzle or a game of Tetris where you make everything fit perfectly and fill in all of the little gaps. Now that I have all the pieces filled in, it's time for step number 3, reattaching the PCB and top plate of the keyboard. So for this keyboard, I had to fit in the cord into its little designated slot and align the screw holes on the top plate to the screw spots on the bottom plate. And since I had filled the entire bottom with a springy foam, it was a bit difficult to fit in all the screws and get the screws to press in. Thus, I had to use a lot of brute force and squeeze the plate together in order to get and make sure that all my screws fit in perfectly. Here you see me struggling to get these screws in, but eventually I got there. And once I finished screwing in all of the screws and attaching the top part of the keyboard to the bottom, I finally got to start reattaching keycaps. And once I got the last keycap on, it was time for another sound test, which, like I mentioned earlier, you will get at the end of the video. Now it's on to mod number 3, lubing the stabilizers. I've already taken off all of the keys with stabilizers and gotten the stabilizers removed from the keyboard themselves so that I can lube them up. What I used was Permatex dielectric grease, and I took a toothpick and kind of spread it around on all of the stabilizers. I put it inside of the stabilizers and on the edges. Since I'm not the greatest filmer in the world, I know that my process is hard to see, but here you see me spreading the lube around the edges of the switch, and for the other part, I just got the lube inside of the switch where it would go across the bar inside of the keyboard. Another thing you're probably noticing is since this is indeed grease, it's very oily, and I was a bit messy and got this greasy mess all over my keycaps. This can be fixed with some cleaner like alcohol, like rubbing alcohol. You can put that on your keycaps and remove the grease, but I used a Clorox wipe and that seemed to do the trick. So here I am cleaning up my mess and getting all that grease off of my keycaps while also disinfecting all of it. Now for the moment that you've all been waiting for, the sound test of the keyboard. So, like I mentioned earlier, I lost the footage and previous sound tests from whenever the before and after of the tape mod. However, I will show you the before and after of the foam mod and of lubing the stabilizers. I'm sorry that I do not have the actual sound of the keyboard initially in order for comparison, but I hope that this is okay with what I have. Up first is the keyboard after the tape mod, but before the foam mod. And now for the keyboard after the foam mod, but before the lube mod. And finally for the sound test after both the tape mod and the foam mod and the lube mod. So which level of modification do you think sounds best? Personally, I like all three of them combined. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button to make sure that you get to see all of the videos that I post in the future. Also hit that like button if you had all enjoyed this video or if you would like to see more keyboard content. As always, I hope that you all had a wonderful day, and I hope to see you all again soon in the future. Bye!